And we're going to continue here with equation conversion. This time we're going from polar back into rectangular. And one of our general strategies here is that we're going to get an r associated with a sine or a cosine, because that leads us back to an x and a y. So one of the main things that you'll be using on this, I'll write it here at the top, is that r squared is x squared plus y squared. That directly relates an r back to an x and a y. That will be very useful. So the thing we're going to do on this one, r equals 4 cosine theta, is we're actually going to multiply both sides by r. And you'll see why I want to do that in a second here. So I get r times r is r squared. And here I get 4 times r times the cosine of theta. And I wrote it in that order on purpose because look right here, r times the cosine of theta. That's just x. And then over here, r squared, well, we just wrote that down. That was x squared plus y squared. So x squared plus y squared equals 4 times x. If I can get all this stuff down. Okay, so we replace the r squared with x squared plus y squared, the r cosine theta with x. So now we have this equation, and we're almost there. We're just going to make it look a little different if we want it to maybe equal 0. I would not count this incorrect, but another thing that you could do is say that that's x squared plus y squared minus 4x equals 0. If it equals 0, that's always a good place to start. So there's that one into rectangular. Went from r's and thetas into x's and y's. And our strategy here was to multiply both sides by r. Okay, and then the next one, 2 over 1 plus sine theta. Now we've got a fraction going on here, so I'm going to start out by thinking of this as r over 1. You can either cross multiply or multiply both sides by the denominator 1 plus sine theta. So on the left-hand side, I'm going to have r times 1 plus the sine of theta, and that equals 2. Okay, then I'm going to distribute my r. So I have r plus r sine theta equals 2. Now I like what happened there because right here, r sine theta, we should recognize that as y. So right now I have r plus y equals 2. Now I still haven't gotten rid of my y value or my r value yet. So we're going to work on that. Let's get it by itself. So I have r equals negative y, moving it to the other side, plus 2. Now, I don't want another r to come into play necessarily. I don't want to multiply both sides by r here. Do not do this. I don't want to multiply both sides by r because then I'm mixing this r back into my y's, and that's not what I want to do. What I do want is to get an r squared. So this time, I'm just going to square this side, and I'm going to square this side, which means that I will get my r squared over here. And be careful, we're going to multiply binomials here. When I distribute that out, I'm going to have positive y squared. Let's see, minus 4y. So I had 2 minus 2's, and then a positive 4. So now I've got that r squared that I can replace on the left-hand side. R squared is x squared plus y squared. Write out the rest. And I see I've got a y squared on both sides, so those guys are going to cancel each other out there. I'm going to put everything, actually, this one, it's kind of a game here at this point. Where do you leave it? How do you change it? As long as you have some correct form, that's going to be fine. But a good way to leave it is in a parabola form, and you may recognize this when we're done, though it's been a few months. X squared equals negative 4y plus 4. And I can factor a -4 out on this side, and that would be y minus 1 over here, at our x squared. That's a parabola. So there you have it. It's all in rectangular. X's and Y's, no R's left over, no thetas left over. Now, some general strategies for these guys. This isn't included on your notes, but you may want to pencil it in somewhere. You want to get R with a sine or a cosine to replace to get an X or a Y. So anytime you see R sine theta, you're going to be able to replace that with your Y value. And anytime you see R times the cosine of theta, you're going to be able to replace that with an X. So one of our strategies is to multiply either a sine or a cosine by an R somehow. Usually involves just multiplying R on both sides. Another strategy, well, another question, do you square both sides or do you multiply both sides by R? You saw both of those strategies in the previous two examples. Sometimes it's a little hard to tell, but overall, if you have an X or a Y already involved, like we did in the second example, you need to square and not multiply by R. Because if you start multiplying by R, then you're going to get mixed terms with X's and Y's and an R. And that's not exactly where you want to go. It creates more trouble. So it takes some practice. It takes some strategy. So keep practicing and good luck.